I think you were in class 10th or 11th that you converted your normal IC engine car to an electric car. Is that right?
I had done that. 39 to 43% of the pollution is attributable to commercial vehicles running in the cities. The automobile was invented to get rid of the horse dung problem. That is a real problem it's solved. So you're going at a speed of 24 kilometers per hour, carrying 250 kg of load. गाड़ी का वजन कितना है? 2 टन, 2.5 टन. How much is the brake horsepower you use? Do you actually use 0 to 100 in 2.8 seconds?
काफी कुछ चल रहा है यार. ईवी यू सी सडनली वीडियोस, यू नो, ईवी की स्कूटर है, उसमें आग लग रही है. जो आग लग रही है दैट्स बिकॉज ऑफ द बैटरी ना.
There are so many decisions for a driverless car to take. Accident हो गया या रेड लाइट जंप हुई, चलान किसको भरना पड़ेगा? You should understand your customer the best. Your business will start and end at the customer. आज अगर मेरे को स्टार्ट करना होता, I think EV startup I would have failed today. It is used in the core design of the vehicle, right? It's not that आप उसको बोलो बॉस मेरे को ये ABCD करना है, प्रोडक्ट डिजाइन कर दे. वो डिजाइन तो कर देगा, वो चलेगा नहीं चलेगा अभी तो AI को भी नहीं पता. I think BYD has done a far greater job in creating impact than Tesla.
Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Journey podcast with Simarpreet Singh. We have my very close friend INDERVEER, the founder and CEO of EVAGE Motors. Paji, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for calling me.
ਕੀ ਹਾਲ ਚਾਲ ਹੈ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਦੱਸੋ.
Bas, all good, fine.
So we'll talk about pollution, climate change, EVs, but I think to deep dive firstly, and I've always asked you that you're a Punjabi born in Jamnagar. When a Punjabi is born in Gujarati, how it's a very deadly combination. How was your early...
On paper, it looks deadly.
On paper,
yeah,
Punjabi
it's
and
slightly
Gujarati.
Confusing.
Acha, okay.
Because you're
Confusing
neither
for
a
you, for
Punjabi
the
nor a
other.
Gujarati. And you're stuck in the middle. So it may not necessarily be a great thing growing up as a child, maybe.
But how was the early days in Jamnagar?
Jamnagar was a very idyllic town, if you can say so. It's great now because of the refinery and the investments Reliance made over the last 3 decades. But I was born before that. So it was a very small town. And it is reminiscent of India in the 70s and 80s. What we see in movies, the narratives we see of India, they hold true for a very small town. It had one school, a boys and a girls school. It had 2 shops to buy uniforms from. That was the city that Jamnagar was in the late 80s when I sort of gained consciousness or understood the world.
You come from a family business when you started. So was this like initially very normal? Matlab, you were aware about the business as you were growing up, or it was not discussed that much?
Invariably, you are part of the business at a very young age. You may understand a few things, you may not understand a few things. But you are given access to how your parents or your grandparents think about certain things. What are the kind of problems that may be surfacing, whatever trickle down, of course, around you, you start to think in that way. And at that point of time, it doesn't make a huge difference, but I think subconsciously, it prepares you to take business decisions, think like a business person at a fairly young stage. So I think that does...
And what was this business you were part of early on?
So we were...
And this is when you joined, did your schooling, did your college, and you joined your business, family business 2003, 2002,
2003, 4. I worked for 5-7 years.
Okay.
I worked as an employee, of course. And
in your company?
Yeah. And then I formed EVAGE. So basically...
EVAGE happened in 2014?
14 years.
You were like second generation, third generation?
I am third generation.
Third generation. And what was it primarily? मतलब क्या काम कर रहे थे?
Capital goods, heavy goods.
Heavy goods.
Yeah.
Manufacturing.
Manufacturing. That's why I manufacture still.
Correct.
That's part of our DNA.
And so you were part of, you were doing what kind of profile were you? Were you in production, or I'm just trying to
once you're in the family business, you are doing something or the other, right? Without a role. It's a cliche, but I heard Mukesh Ambani talk on some channel yesterday, and he said I was called, and I asked my dad, "What's my role?" He said,
Go figure it out.
"Figure it out." So that's pretty much how everybody does that, I guess. So that was our job. But I was corely, my personal interest was towards R&D.
I read somewhere recently that I think you were in class 10th or 11th, that you converted your normal IC engine car to an electric car. Is that right? तो बताओ क्या था वो यार थोड़ा सा. What was that? Like how you were in 11th class that time?
Yeah, I was in 10th actually.
10th class, okay.
And I was not interested to give my board exams. I was trying to figure out some way to not study. And it ended up being this project.
So this project is that जो आपकी गाड़ी थी घर पे जो which was a...
There was a scrap 800 scrap, मतलब 7-8 साल हो चुके होंगे उसको शायद से, and it was lying around.
Maruti 800.
Yeah.
So Maruti 800 you converted into EV.
Yeah.
And this is like 1997, 1998.
98.
Wow. तो बताओ यार थोड़ा उस पे करें ना बात. That's interesting.
I mean, nothing. It was, for me, honestly, it was a diversion from
बोर्ड एग्जाम नहीं देने
board
मेरे को.
exam,
हाँ
and
ठीक
how
है.
not to study for board exams.
But why EV यार? 98 मतलब 2014 में जाके बनता है EVAGE Motors. But why EV? Like nobody was talking. आज भी
Actually, I had read and our parents and grandparents, there used to be these magazines coming from the US, MIT Tech Review, and so on and so forth. And luckily, Chris Boroni had then designed the first for Chrysler, I think the first or GM, which was called the EV001 in '96. Wo magazine, I got hold of it in 97 or 98 because that's how it used to travel to India, and internet was not there those days. And I said, yeah, this is something different. Why don't we try this? So we did it, and luckily we were making capital goods and other components, and motors were also manufactured in-house. So it's not as exciting as it sounds, but I was able to conjure up things from within the factory and put it together.
And you never thought of like मेरे इंडिया में तो I keep joking ना पहले इंडिया में पहले इंजीनियर बनते हैं या डॉक्टर बनते हैं फिर डिसाइड करते हैं क्या करना लाइफ में. So but you never decided having this knack of product development early on. You never thought कि engineering is my calling and but mostly doing this.
I can go on about the Indian education system.
वो
that's
करेंगे.
for
That's a separate topic.
That's a separate topic, right?
Okay.
In our family, and being a manufacturing core engineering family, they said that boss, you can hire engineers literally. But
धंधा सीखो है ना. Commerce सीख लो, balance sheet देख लो.
How to manage the business, how to finance,
उसके लिए
how to
commerce
market, or how to sales. These are things which will enable the business to go from 1x to 10x or.
Which is also ठीक है मतलब mindset तो ठीक है मतलब कि यार आप commerce numbers सीख लो.
I think it helps, and it helps me personally because I am far more objective when looking at a product. I'm not driven by physics. I'm driven by how to apply those physics to a understanding of a problem that a common person is facing. And when you are an engineer, the most difficult thing is to be impartial about the technical issues that come in a product.
And that too आपने अगर बनाया हो.
Exactly. So you are always biased by that. And how you can, understand at the core of as a user, what are the core problems? What are the core improvements that a user desires? These are things which help you create a better product for your users. And end of the day, anything that we do as a business is to create an amazing experience for your consumers. And you take any business in this world, it has been successful because they have either made the work easy for consumers. They have given an exceptional consumer experience. This is the basis of any good business, and we've tried to complicate it with a lot of theories around it. But at the core of it is understand your customer, give them a great product or a service, and the customer will keep coming back for you.
So from 2000, after finishing college, 2004, 2013, 14, you were part of your family business. And how did EVAGE happen? Like in 2014 it started.
So I developed this electric vehicle.
Commercial vehicle.
No. I developed the car.
Gadi,
in,
हाँ,
97, 98
97.
में. And it was a failed project, at least in my mind, because it could only run 20, 30 kilometers and then it used to take 4 hours to charge.
Right.
You know, you start traveling around, see the world. And then you suddenly realize that pollution is having a major impact, be it climate change, be it how our bodies react to it, and the lungs thing I read somewhere. In cities where there's a high concentration of pollution, have an average lung size that is smaller than the global average. Now we are changing the DNA of our next generation by the pollution that is spreading. It is an actual problem that the whole world is facing. And there are two options you have in life. One is you can be sitting in the sidelines and commenting on this. Oh, you know, the government should do this, the company should do this. And the other thing is you actually make that small change in the world that you see. And I thought that, you know, this is a good time to see, you know, if you can make that change or not. A business opportunity can be created out of sustainability. So that is how this whole concept for EVAGE came into being. 2014 mein, I sat, and I'll not name the companies, but a few companies I sat there. They said, "Arey, ye kahan abhi to." This is good for venture capitalists in the valley who may want to drive a fast-looking car which will cost
Fancy car.
Yeah, and which will cost them $100,000. This is India, yaar. यहाँ पे क्या चलेगा? So that was how we started, and then 1 or 2 years you struggle. You ask a question to yourself whether this is even the right thing to do or not. Some point, because all the OEs are not interested, and that is how we decided then, okay, let's try it ourselves. If we can't sell electric vehicle components, then let's do the whole thing. And that's when we went into full production of
2014 में.
16 हो गया था, but 2014 onward,
14 to 16 that you already
develop
deep dive.
powertrains. You develop your because the core of any electric vehicle is the battery pack and the powertrain, right? So we developed the powertrain by 2016, and 1 year we had been struggling to find business, get business. But I didn't think we were successful. It was too early, I think, in hindsight. Government was started talking about buses in 2016, 2015, but nobody took it seriously, neither the OEs nor anybody else. And then we decided that, okay, if we have to create a chain, then you have to make a vehicle, not a subsystem.
How did you sort of narrow down to we have to make a commercial vehicle? So that is something very...
We need to understand what is the core of our business. In 2014, when I started off, the idea was to create sustainable mobility solutions, right? So 3 words, a lot of things go into it. We started with solutions. Nobody bought it. So we said we'll get into mobility, but it has to be sustainable, right? We then delved deeper into who we are as an organization, right? We are going to create an impact sustainably. Then we thought, which are the vehicles that will create an impact? And then we realized that maximum pollution is created by commercial vehicles that are running on the streets or on our cities.
Commercial vehicles, these are trucks and buses.
Small trucks and buses which run within the city.
Acha, I didn't know this. So it's not gaadiyan nahi hai.
Exactly. So if you...
Oh, acha.
39 to 43% of the pollution, total pollution produced, is attributable to commercial vehicles running in the cities.
So this is like globally or India?
Globally.
Oh, okay.
And it will depend country to country, but it is anywhere between 39 to 43% of the total emissions that are produced. If you just look at on-road transportation vehicles, 70 to 80% of the pollution is attributable to commercial vehicles, 20% to personal carriers. So we decided that was impact to kahan pe padega zyada, like literally, and it becomes a no-brainer when you look at these numbers, right?
And when we say commercial vehicle, this is all small
small, light, or
light, heavy, jitne
heavy,
sare.
but we zeroed in, and buses also, right? And then we said, boss, it's a big boys game making cars, right? Ab tak to small components bana rahe the. So what's the kind of money that we have? And then we realized, bus to banegi nahi, because we don't have enough funds to create what we call the MVP. So then we said, okay, buses are not there. Then we decided the maximum impact will be these small trucks that are moving in cities, in and around. We need to look at how we can possibly make them greener or sustainable, so as to speak. And that's how we zeroed in on a small commercial vehicle truck. And we manufacture 4-wheel trucks, because people confuse us with 2-wheel and 3 wheels, because that's the biggest market that is changing right now. But I believe we make the most impact among companies who are making sustainable vehicles, because our 1 kilometer is equal to 15-20 kilometers by the smaller vehicles run on electric. The amount of CO2 we would save would be almost same.
So that means ki the 1 kilometer
On a truck is equal to maybe 10 to 15 kilometers on a bike.
So 1 kilometer in terms of carbon emissions saved.
Exactly. So in terms of carbon that goes out is saved. And if you look at it, a personal vehicle, what do you do with a personal vehicle?
A personal vehicle, 2-wheeler or a 4-wheeler?
2-wheeler, 4-wheeler. You are either parking it in your garage at home or in your office. Monday to Friday, half your life is spent going to the office and coming back. On a weekend, you may go shopping, you may go for a small excursion, and your average kilometers would be around 20,000 kilometers a year. Converting them to electric, you're not going to play a major part in saving the environment. A truck that we deliver runs 300 kilometers every day today. So we are talking about what you travel in a year, we would do in 45 days maybe. And that is where the impact comes.
So people talk about impact and, being into sustainable energy myself, and, we keep talking about impact and the work that we're doing. But that's a very, very interesting sort of metric or a business strategy to see that impact कहाँ पे सबसे ज़्यादा होगा. एंड नॉट क्योंकि आजकल क्या ट्रेंड, सेक्सी ट्रेंड्स है कि अगर चलो गाड़ी बनाते हैं तो चलो 4-wheeler गाड़ी बना ली.
It's the most unsexiest thing to do. 2017-18 when people used to ask me आप क्या कर रहे हो, ट्रक बना रहे हैं जी, and they used to look at me as
but isn't that also a so I was at the framework, because that's a great framework to see ना कि impact सबसे ज़्यादा कहाँ हो रहा है, and create a business model out of that. And I have never seen, because I've been following the EV space since almost 5-6 years, मैंने कभी उस लेंस से कभी नहीं देखा कि अच्छा यार 2-wheeler तो इतना कार्बन एमिशन, मतलब यहाँ पे तो आप ज़्यादा सेव करोगे ना, मतलब अगर आपके गुड्स यहाँ ट्रैवल कर रहे हैं एक ट्रक में तो
किसी ने भी नहीं देखा ना. कमर्शियल व्हीकल्स आर नॉट मेजरली कवर्ड इन फेम. द गवर्नमेंट इज पुशिंग फॉर 4-wheeler पैसेंजर व्हीकल्स, 2-wheelers और बसेस. सो
वो टाइम बताओ मुझे, 2017 से 18, like
2016 was a very interesting year if you look at it. And this is also interesting to see how things not happening in your industry can impact your strategy. 2016 is when broadband happened to India. Jio was launched. Average consumption was 150 MB per user in India, I think, and it shot up to a few gigabytes today. I don't even know the number. But we also realized that with this happening, we sensed that there would be a bigger need for delivery vehicles to be there. And e-commerce or electronic means of commerce, be it the large e-tailers or something, would define the future of trade, at least B2C trade in India. And we said, okay, we'll make an electric truck specifically for these logistics networks. What it forced to do was change how the logistics networks are designed in this last decade. Earlier, India was driven by sabji mandis. That used to be the center of commercial activity because we still are a agrarian economy. And any vehicle you design or logistics network you design used to be around that thing. Even there's a whole sector in Chandigarh which is a sabji mandi, right? That's how important a sabji mandi is to the whole nation right now. Uh, but with the advent of these bigger companies coming in, and internet being accessible to a very large percentage of the population, people started snacking on things they needed. It gave birth to Q-commerce and all the new age internet companies, right? So we realized that we'll make vehicle systems which will be commercial vehicles, improving this segment. And that's how we got to design, and we had that insight in 2016. Luckily, till today, we don't see a lot of people converting to this. And this market has grown at a CAGR of 14 to 15%, the small commercial vehicle, versus other commercial vehicles still have not grown. And it is driven by commerce. So there was, of course, our core business is sustainability, and how the macroeconomic trends of the future will help us position a product which is rightly made. So that is how we design these products, and luckily we have major customers now, and we are selling this product well.
Majority customers are what kind of are these logistics or warehouse companies that
E-commerce becomes our largest customer because that's for whom we
for
design
delivering
this vehicle.
goods from one place to the other.
Point A to point B. It could be either a mid-mile run or a last-mile run. But that became our core customer base. And that has been the story of
EVAGE.
From being a component supplier, thinking to be a component supplier,
2014 to 16,
to becoming a product company,
in
then
2017.
visualizing the product, and bringing it on to the...
So first prototype was 2017.
2018 and early 2019, I think.
Okay. And because we've had this conversation in the past also, that whenever I've talked about competition or people that, Paji, ये तो बहुत बड़ा sector है, you're talking about these large incumbent players that you're going to take on. How do you see that a company, a traditional company which is manufacturing commercial vehicles for the last, let's say, 50 years, IC engines, for them it's easy to sort of pivot, right? कि उनके पास that kind of expertise hai,
there's a yes and a no to this, right?
So explain that.
Whenever change happens, it will be outside in. It will never be inside out. You have to accept the external factors are changing, and that is going to force you to change. And electrification is one such tectonic shift that is happening, which we believe that the current way how the automotive industry is set up is not conducive for disruptive change. If you look at the automotive industry, there has
any
been
kind of automotive or commercial vehicles.
Any kind of automotive. Okay. Let's delve deeper into the history of the automobile, right? Now it has become pretty common, these things I see on social media, but I'm talking about 10 years back when we were studying this. What is the history of the automobile, right? And why was the automobile actually invented? And you've studied at Harvard, you've been to US, you would have seen most of the townhouses are at a height of 4 to 5 feet. There's a staircase to every townhouse. Because that was the height of horse dung on the streets. The automobile was invented to get rid of the horse dung problem. It had nothing to do with going faster or connecting people, right? And that's how the automobile started in the 1890s. And Henry Ford came along. He bought mass production so that you could produce this in larger numbers. Or until then, you had players like Pininfarina or Bugatti. They were all horse carriage makers, and they migrated to putting an engine instead of a horse, and sort of, that's their heritage. And Henry Ford comes along and brings a mass-produced vehicle, and that was one big shift that happened in the automotive industry. After that, it has been a story of incremental changes for the last century. But the technology industry works at a 12-month period, right? Can the vehicles move in this direction? So that is where I see the opportunity to compete with the larger players is there. And that is what we have done at EVAGE, right? You see, until now, products are localized for India, what we call a product that is designed specifically to be successful in India. Maruti happened, it was Suzuki, but this car is only designed and developed for India, 70 to 80% of the vehicles. Hyundai was successful because they designed these cars only to be sold primarily in India. And it has always been the fact that global OEs have to change their platform and come to India, right? And um, the world is changing. India is not what it used to be. Indians are different. We have aspirations far greater than what our parents would have had or grandparents would have had. So we designed a platform that could be made in India but for the world. And that is how we are changing the whole paradigm shift. We are looking at globalization, and we are looking as India to be the factory for the world, at least for our vehicles.
As a product company, and I've had this discussion in the past that whether it was the IT sector, जो boom आया 10 साल, इंडिया कुड नेवर बिकम ए प्रोडक्ट कंपनी. हमने सर्विस बेची है, राइट? आईटी में भी अगर आप देखो, यू डोंट सी अ
Back end,
माइक्रोसॉफ्ट बीइंग बिल्ड और अ व्हाट्सएप और अ गूगल बीइंग बिल्ड बाय इंडिया, राइट? इंडिया इज ऑलवेज में सर्विस माइंडसेट रहा है, राइट?
And interestingly, the largest consumption.
And when you talk about product mindset, right? So EVAGE manufacturing, commercial vehicles, electric commercial vehicles. I want to understand when we talk about product development, and I want to dig deeper onto the 4ME concept that you said about the chassis system, modular chassis system. And there are two aspects that come. One is that a country which has always had engineers also think from a service mindset to a product mindset. So that is one, right? How do you change that? मतलब बना तो इंडिया में रहे हो ना, ऐसा तो है नहीं कि आप मैन्युफैक्चरिंग जर्मनी में कर रहे हो. So that is one. And secondly, take me more deeper into the modular chassis system that you talk about. So why ये दो लिंक इसलिए कर रहा हूँ because it's very important कि जहाँ पे माइंडसेट ही सर्विस का है, वहाँ पे एक पुश अप कर रहे हो प्रोडक्ट माइंडसेट के. How is the interlink and what's the way forward for this?
See, when we talk about the service mindset, a lot of it has to do with the history of India, right? We know that we only got independence in 47, and 700-800 years we were always ruled by some or the other dynasty or something happening, which were not local to India, right? And the British rule was not that great, and we can go on talk about things, but overall, the mindset of Indian national was to think within the box, be a conformist mindset, and that has carried forward even after independence. Right? It is now that we see the new India coming up over the last decade or so, and that has been partially responsible for us not being able to make great products in India, or great products coming out of India, right? And also, at least when we were growing up, a person will say, "Boss, तेरे को doctor बनना है, तेरे को engineer बनना है," and that's done. Get a job, either go to the US and get a high-paying job, or stay in India and get a medium to high-paying job, right? And that's your life. To now, where people think it's okay to drop out, where people think it's okay to try something new. This whole journey has been the journey of India, actually. Right? And this is the new India we are talking about, where we are ready to take on global challenges. We are ready to try new things, take risks, and develop great products. But there are challenges. There were a lot of challenges. And I'll give you a small anecdote, right? 2018-19, the prototype was ready. I was on top of the moon. That was, हमने तो ट्रक बनाया है जी, गाड़ी बना ली, and this is working finally. It's not 20 kilometers. It is doing the 120 kilometers what my customer wants, and the customer is ready to buy in that zone. And then I met a few family members, and they said, अरे ये तो बहुत बढ़िया है यार, तुमने तो गाड़ी बना ली है, एक काम करो, ये डिज़ाइन लेके ना किसी बड़े कंपनी को बेच दो, यू अर्न योर मनी, तुम क्या पंगे ले रहे हो? just gives you to showcase the mindset that is there in India, right? It was a product which was newly developed, and they said, "Was don't get into this janjat of industrializing the product, getting into huge scale manufacturing. Just sell it off to somebody, and let them do it. Why are you doing it?" And for no reason at all, right? So that was the example of how straitjacketed the mindset is still.
Because I remember when we are at the mindset, the product versus service mindset. I still remember जब भी कोई एग्जीबिशन पे भी बाहर जाते थे ना, अपने अपने बिजनेस में या काम में, कि कोई एक्सपो लग रहा है, इन दी सोलर एक्सपो और पावर एक्सपो, द फर्स्ट थिंग द वी वुड थिंक अबाउट, और लोग जब हम करके आते थे, अच्छा यार क्या टेक्नोलॉजी हम लेके आ सकते हैं, 4ME कॉन्सेप्ट बताओ यार, उस पर डीप डाइव करते हैं. वी आर एट प्रोडक्ट डेवलपमेंट, थोड़ा उस पर डीप डाइव करते हैं.
2016 when we started off, the average cost to develop a platform in India was 60 to 100 crores.
Average cost to
Develop a new platform
platform
from scratch
Okay.
was 60 to 100 crores.
What do you mean by platform?
A new platform, as in, so in the automotive industry, right, you develop platforms, and on top of it you can build certain variants.
Okay.
Like there'll be the chassis, engine, suspension, steering parts, brake parts, to put forward a platform, and then you can create a few variants around that platform. Example, you take any Maruti vehicle or Suzuki vehicle, for example, right? Swift was a very famous one. They had Swift, they built the Swift ke upar Swift Desire bana di, then Ertiga.
Correct.
Theoretically the same platform with some minor changes, they did that. So that is one platform. They could build some variants around it, 3 to 4 variants. So that's what a platform is called. So I can develop, if I was a traditionalist company, I could develop a 1 ton, 1.5 ton, 750 kg truck on the same platform, maybe with these variants, right? That's what it means to do. And then we realized that it's better to have one platform which can take care of not variants, but 2 to 3 different vehicle form factors.
Kind of standardization hogi na? Kind of.
It's higher degree of customization, actually. So how vehicles are made is they are either designed on a chassis, and there's an integral part, the chassis and the body, which we call the monocoque construction, becomes an integral part of the vehicle, right? So theoretically, you can't change. If you change the vehicle form factor, you are changing the whole chassis and the whole system. All the vehicle dynamics go for a toss, right? We decided that we should have a platform which we can endlessly right size for applications we want. So it could have a common underbody, and the top parts can keep on changing as and when we want. So if I want a wider vehicle, I can use the same part numbers to extend the width of the vehicle. If I want to increase the length of the vehicle, I can add the same part numbers and increase the length of the vehicle without changing in the complexity of pushing in a new vehicle. If I want a more powerful vehicle, I can just change the powertrain on the same setup without altering a lot of things. If I want a larger battery pack, I can add a few modules on the same platform.
We talk about EVs and range anxiety is something that's been talked about. So abhi jo EVAGE ki commercial vehicle, electric commercial vehicle, what is the maximum range it can run?
So we are currently offering vehicles between 120 to 180 kilometers of range.
Full charge. And ye lo charging kahan hogi?
If you as a consumer want a 500 kilometer range, you are mining out that many more batteries to put on your vehicle. So would it be sustainable eventually? That's not sustainable. Sustainability comes when I right size it and right use it. What is the use case of a commercial vehicle, small commercial vehicle that we develop? It is to deliver goods from within the city, within the district, right? And then we did a research, we did the voice of customer study, and then we realized that the maximum the vehicle is used in one shift is 120 kilometers.
Maximum.
The average is 80.
80 in a day?
In a shift. 8 hours.
What do you mean? अच्छा 8 hours मतलब अगर एक जगह से let's say point A to point B कोई सामान वेयर हाउस से लिया
मतलब पूरे
और
8 घंटे गाड़ी चलेगी अगर, विच इज द वर्किंग आवर्स, सुबह 8 बजे से
तो
लेके
80
5-6 बजे
किलोमीटर
तक. तो इट रन्स 80 kilometers is the India average. Maximum it will go is 120 kilometers. Do you need a 300 kilometer range? We want that we should have 300 kilometers, we should have 400 kilometers range on the vehicle. And traditional car manufacturers are making it as a selling point. Like at one point of time, the higher the horsepower, the better the vehicle it used to be. Right now, if you think of it logically, and people who in this podcast listeners who know physics can just calculate, carrying 2 people weighing maximum 250 kgs, maximum weight of an individual would be 125, I assume, average out karo, and which is on the higher side. 250 kg वजन उठाने के लिए, and the average speed in our cities, Chandigarh is 24 kilometers per hour, metro cities is 18 kilometers per hour. So you're going at the speed of 24 kilometers per hour, carrying 250 kg of load. गाड़ी का वजन कितना है? 2 टन, 2.5 टन. How much is the brake horsepower you use? Do you actually use 0 to 100 in 2.8 seconds? How many times do we use that? So as a consumer, this is what sustainability means, right? If you keep on asking for these things, the whole planet will not be sustainable, right? So range utni honi chahiye which permits your per shift or per day work. That's the first thing. And then we said, how can we do this in a more sustainable manner? And then we worked on our battery system. We developed technologies around the software, hardware, and the cooling system around the batteries to ensure that we can build batteries that can charge in 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
Yeah, so we can go 0 to 100% charge in 15 minutes. So you run it for 8 hours, you charge it in 15 minutes, and you are ready for the next shift.
So ये जो चार्ज कर रहे हैं ये EV stations लगने चाहिए
Yeah, so
आपकी गाड़ी को चार्ज करने के लिए?
we are setting up our own charging stations.
EVAGE के नाम पे
EVAGE stations.
EVAGE चार्जिंग स्टेशंस एंड वहाँ पे आपके जो कमर्शियल व्हीकल्स हैं जाके वहाँ बट सो आई यू प्लानिंग टू चार्ज इन लाइक जहाँ पे आपके मेजॉरिटी सेल हो रहे हैं व्हीकल्स?
So first we set up the charging station, and then we start selling our vehicles. That's part of the infrastructure that is needed to sell.
And how many charging stations do you have right now?
We currently have more than 8 charging stations
8
in 2 cities.
in 2 cities. Okay.
And per charger, we are charging 35 vehicles in a day, which is unheard of because average charging time is 45 minutes to 1.5 hours for a charger. You can't theoretically charge more than 8 to 10 vehicles in a day.
And these are in which cities? Like कौन से शहर में है?
Chandigarh, Ludhiana, and Delhi now we are opening up.
So 3 अब 3 charging.
Yeah, the third one is opening up today.
Spots. So मतलब majorly जहाँ पे ज़्यादा sell हो रहा है EVAGE, जहाँ पे products.
Yeah, wherever we are going, wherever our customers want us.
Okay, so
we will
you
go
will
there.
set up the charging infrastructure yourself.
Exactly.
EVAGE will set up that.
We are a sustainable mobility solution company. So this is part of the solution that we give. We help them identify. We are not selling our vehicles, right? We help them identify, and we're giving them a solution. How much charging is needed when? Our ultimate aim is that we should give enough juice on the vehicle for it to run for 4 hours. Because there will be a lunch break that the driver has to take.
Right.
It's mandatory for anybody to take a 30-minute break after 4 hours. You can't expect the driver would be running 8 hours without lunch, without a break. And that should be the time where we can charge the vehicle.
But this concept of being controlling the charging infrastructure also, not the जैसे petrol pumps है, right? कि मतलब लोगों ने बना लिए, like why do you want to control this?
I'm
why
not
do you,
controlling it. If
but why
anybody
do you
wants to put up a charger, happy to partner with them.
Okay. So anyone can put
Anyone
the
can
charging
do that,
infrastructure कहाँ जहाँ पे भी आपका vehicle.
The protocols are common now. There's a CCS2 and the NAC standard that is now working.
But currently the charging stations that you have that are owned by you only.
Yeah, because we need to push the sales, our sales first.
काफ़ी कुछ चल रहा है यार ईवी. जैसे हमने ईवी के बारे में बात की तो यू सी सडनली वीडियोस कॉपिंग अप ऑन योर सोशल मीडिया दैट यू नो ईवी की स्कूटर है उसमें आग लग रही है एंड देयर आर पीपल दैट आर उसको मार रहे हैं और ऐसी चीज़ें कर रहे हैं. हाउ व्हाट डज इट डू फ्रॉम ए कंज्यूमर स्टैंड पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू व्हेन दीज काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स कम फॉरवर्ड? डज इट मोटिवेट पीपल? एक सेंटिमेंट डाउन होता है? Take us through that.
See, whenever you launch a new product, there are bound to be failures. Failures leading to catastrophes are not acceptable. As a product designer, you are responsible for the safety of the users. That's a core responsibility. Product अगर आप बना रहे हो, one is to make money, but the second thing is also that you are responsible for how the product performs. And whenever you make an automotive product, there needs to be a lot of time and effort given into reliability of the vehicle, performance of the vehicle, and the repeatability with which you can get that result, right? And that takes time for the initial few launches, right? Until you get that right, you can't push a product to the market.
But जो आग लग रही, that's because of the battery, na?
Yeah, it's because of the battery, but then the battery is a subsystem of the whole vehicle, right? Is it the battery pack that is causing an error? Is it the BMS which is sending a wrong signal? Which each manufacturer would have done their research, and it would be unique to each manufacturer. So I can't comment too much on other people.
But what does it do to the entire talk about the EV ecosystem? और एक positivity की बात हो रही है, जो आप देख रहे हो LinkedIn
What
पे,
are the number of vehicles? Fires story started erupting in
2 years
March last year.
हाँ, correct.
23-22 में हुआ था ये
हाँ,
सब
correct,
ना?
ये early.
What has been the growth trajectory of two-wheelers after that? I quote Victor Hugo here. Nobody can stop an idea whose time has come. Right? So electrification is something which is going to happen. There are going to be initial hiccups for whatsoever reasons, right? You can't prevent those happening. But by and large, if you see what even the smallest of manufacturers has done over the last 2 years, the number of incidents have started to crash down. So as an industry, we have responsible people leading the industry, and they will be working towards improving their products. Agar nahi hoga to nobody will buy out. And there are few manufacturers, I'll not take their name, they have lost market share considerably over the last few years. They were in the top 2, now they're in the bottom 2. So that whole change.
But battery, जब हम source की बात कर रहे हैं, lithium की बात कर रहे हैं, we'll little deep dive into the battery aspect. I understand that
battery
you're talking
fires
about,
are, and that's where you are heading to, I guess,
correct,
right? What causes these fires?
Correct.
Right. Battery fires can be subjected to poor quality of cells selected. It can be subjected to poor BMS design, and these are design errors, right? Then poor assembly of the pack. The cells are welded together. The thermal management. These are 4 or 5 reasons which can lead to a battery pack failure. And then we don't have to forget the fact that all these battery packs are subjected to immense vibrations on the road. They are subjected to a crash sometimes if that happens. And they have to still sustain that and not catch fire. So, but jo hamare control mein hai, these are the 5 things, right? If the cell sourcing is wrong, it could lead to a fire. If the pack assembly is not done properly, welding becomes a critical thing because you have to weld the terminals all together. And if that is not happening, or there is a failure in that, it can lead to fire, short circuit. Then there has to be adequate attention paid to the BMS. If the load is not balanced properly, it can lead to a fire. If overall there is a manufacturing defect in the process itself, that can also lead to fire. So these are few reasons which lead to fire. It is not only cells and cell sourcing. And it would be unique to every fire that has got place. But interestingly, most of the fires that have got place are at the time of charging. खड़ी गाड़ी में कभी नहीं लगी है. It's at the time of charging that this has happened, right?
So this is the whole concept about the incidents that has happened. But what about the source? जो हम lithium की बात कर रहे हैं, इंडिया में recently पिछले साल खबर आई थी कि जम्मू के एरिया में
तो राजस्थान में भी है,
राजस्थान में lithium रिजर्व, बट lithium तो बन नहीं रहा इंडिया में, आप सारा इम्पोर्ट ही कर रहे हैं.
So oil थोड़ी इंडिया से ले रहे हो आप. Every kilometer you drive, आप अपना बैलेंस ऑफ पेमेंट माइनस कर रहे हो. लिथियम एक बार आएगा, 10 साल तो चलेगा.
बट फिर भी वो सप्लाई चेन तो फिर भी बनी हुई है ना, मतलब जो ऑयल की इकोनॉमी की तो इतने साल बनी हुई है. बट डू यू फील दैट देयर आर लॉट ऑफ टॉक्स ऑन बैटरी टेक्नोलॉजी हैपनिंग, राइट? जैसे सोडियम की बात हो रही है, लिथियम, बट हाउ डू यू सी दैट स्पेस?
बैटरी टेक्नोलॉजी, देयर आर 2 clear things. if you see lithium as a preferred source of batteries, it was invented by John Goodenough in
Yeah.
78.
He died recently, na?
Yeah, last year. 78 में,
Yeah.
right? Between 78 to the first commercial use of this lithium battery was in 91 or 94 in the laptop. From laptop, it migrated to electronics and finally to automobiles. Right? So this journey has been of 5 decades. And a lot of these technologies, sodium is the prime technology, has been, and I've seen a few battery plants, cell manufacturing plants also. Uh, uh, these have been developed in laboratories. Laboratories में वो पुराने बटन वाले सेल आते थे, घड़ी में लगते थे.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are lab cells.
Yeah.
ठीक है, आप उसमें एक बटन सेल या 4 बटन सेल बना के it's a good novel technology. Now you need to do is you need to first see the performance at scale. एक vehicle में in our vehicle, the larger vehicles, you consume roughly 800 to 1200 cells in one vehicle. और 4 सेल बना के आप ये थोड़ी कहोगे टेक्नोलॉजी चेंज हो जाएगी. You need to ensure that over 1 million cells you can give the same performance. So that is the first juncture it has to pass through. The second juncture that has to pass through is the fact that if you come with a sodium ion cell to me, so ठीक है, fine है, मैं एक battery pack बनाऊंगा, I'll put it on my vehicle and I'll test it for 100,000 kilometers. I can't just give it to a customer and then have a customer failure after 20,000 kilometers. Right? To put 100 kilometers mileage clocked onto your vehicle, you're talking about 6 months to 12 months minimum. And then for you to set up a plant which will produce at scale, you need to have the capability. Put in 2-3 years. PLI scheme में 1.5 साल हो गया, I think, for the cells. Has India produced its first cell? Because it takes that much time. So अगर आज कोई नई novel technology market में आ रही है, there's a 5 to 7 year journey for it to be industrialized. And from industrialization to mass consumption takes another 5 years. So 50 साल लगे हैं जो lithium ion को prime source बनने के, it will cut down to 10 now if some new technology comes into picture. Right? But that journey will have to be covered. You can't cut short on that journey.
But do you think that जो ये news आ रही है reserve find out किया, तो इसकी supply chain बनने में क्या time लगेगा? What do you think?
So there are different views on this, right? One
है भी
says
है,
that
ये नहीं है, ये भी नहीं पता.
नहीं है तो है, but one set of news says that to purify that or refine that lithium, it's going to increase the cost of the lithium itself drastically. What we have in India.
Purify, refining
it,
करना
yeah.
पड़ेगा ना, correct.
Use कहाँ पे हो रहा था lithium का? It was only China that was producing these cells in the 90s, and some bit in Japan. And all the research or investment into finding out reserves was only in China. Now when the world has risen up to the fact that lithium is a main mineral of the world, it's a new oil, so as to speak. Right? There are discoveries in Australia already. There are discoveries in South America that are happening. India just signed a pact 2 weeks back with, I think, Chile or some country in the Southern American region for direct supply chain talks. So this whole supply chain will settle, with that. There'll be more discoveries being made, more reserves found out in the world. That will lead to more exploration. Right? So that's how it happens. Like Saudi Arabia, whatever oil is produced in a strip which is 50 to 100 kilometers long. Right? And the whole world is getting it from there. So there will be reserves, I'm sure. But अभी तक किसी ने invest ही नहीं किया to find the reserves because it was worthless earlier. Now suddenly it is becoming important. So the supply chain will play out.
And अभी आप सारा import कर रहे हैं, मतलब all the lithium that you're buying is you're importing.
Yeah, we are buying the cells from Japan, but everything is imported right now.
So 2022, almost 25 plus patents filed, already production start, and we have to talk about EVAGE as a startup, है ना? But we have to talk about funding. Startup की funding हो, because by that time I still remember that there are friends in my circle that कोई product नहीं बनाया, कोई service नहीं बनाया, बस कहते हैं यार हमको ना funding alert चाहिए. And here comes Inderveer, deeply focused on product, deeply focused on sustainability, sustainable mobility solution provider, and from 2014 pivots himself कि चलो supply chain में करते हैं, फिर product करके फिर narrows down the focus into manufacturing a electric commercial vehicle, small commercial vehicle, starts the production 1 से 5 साल से, and then in the history of funding gets the maximum seed capital, right? I think
one of the largest.
One of the largest, right? $28 million.
Hopefully, yeah,
$28 million was the one of the. I think it is the largest seed round. It was पता नहीं कितने, अब तो बहुत सीरीज हो गए, सीरीज A, B, C है ना.
That was the only round they raised so far.
Yeah.
And
क्या take us through that process?
Interestingly, if you see the commercial vehicle में, we were compared with large global companies, startups, who got listed through SPACs and so on and so forth. They were valued, I think they raised $1 billion, valued at 10 billion, 20 billion. Today, all of them are not surviving. EVAGE is the only surviving company in that race right now, because our core value system was to have a product first and then ask for funding, because then the uncertainty reduces about kya karoge, right? So we focused, put our head down, and me as an individual or anybody in our organization for that matter, we are not driven by the fact that we would want to die as the richest people in the city, town, planet, earth, whatever you call it, right? We are driven by the impact we can create. So when your goalpost is only different, and somebody told me, right, 28 million is the largest seed round ever or something. I said, ठीक है होगा भाई, हमको तो ज़रूरत थी production के लिए जितना पैसा चाहिए था, we were raising that much, right? So our goalpost always has been to create this impact. Be as citizens of India when we go out and sell our products proudly, EV products, commercial vehicles going out of India, right? And people still find it hard to believe that we can still produce it at a global standard, right? To raise funds, our ask was simple, right? Boss, ये product है हमारा, आप आओ, test करो, you can run it, drive it, be comfortable about it, and we have some interest from a few e-commerce companies, so बिक जाएगा, हम बेच लेंगे. We just need funds to produce to create a factory or something.
And उससे पहले you never look for funds, like 2022?
No, we had a small friends and family round, but there was just a lead up to the seed round. And we spent our own thing, and we were fairly frugal in trying to do it. That's what I told you. We didn't have 100 crores then to develop a platform. And we still would not spend 100 crores if we have to.
And I know as a person that I know you as a friend that you are so focused on your own thing that you hardly see outside क्या हो रहा है दुनिया में, but you are aware, right, what's happening in the startup ecosystem. Funding ले रहे हैं, cash burn हो रहा है, over hiring हो रही है, बंदे निकाल देते हैं, and then the CEO just writes कि I take full accountability. ना बंदों की नौकरी चलेगी यार. एक lower middle class का बच्चा जिसने आपके कंपनी में believe किया and they believed that आप loss कर रहे थे पहले दिन से, आपने बोला था जी कभी ना कभी profitable होंगे, and you were always lost, and एक दिन आया कि जी आपने निकाल दिया over hiring करके.
See, our job at EVAGE always is to be sustainable. Sustainability can be environment, sustainable as an organization. So we are always driven by this, right? There are cases where people have been successful, burning cash and then suddenly turning profitable. There are a few companies who have done that. Facebook was a classic example.
वो ट्रेंड नहीं बन गया इंडिया में.
So people try to wait, but वो Facebook एक था ना. Like Facebook was not making money till the IPO. Then in a year when they went towards their revenue generation model, they had a user base of 1 billion odd people. I think
product भी अच्छा था ना, मतलब it was a good product.
Product तो था ही. There was engaging content for people in 2010-11 and they turned profitable, right? When they started Facebook ads, marketplace, ये वो जो भी करके. So they became an alternative to the Google advertising world at that point of time. Right. So they proved that it is possible, but if one person has done it, not everybody can repeat it. And we are in the manufacturing space, so you can't think like an internet company. Scale will bring profitability. So and again, I am too much focused on what we try to do as an organization. Hiring is something which is the slowest process by design. It's not meant to stifle our growth, but it is meant to hire for roles which are sustainable and which can create value to the organization.
When
Bench
the
पे बिठा के क्या
organization
फायदा?
scale,
Yeah.
correct, correct.
And you have to design the organization in such a way that you manage your overheads, right? We had our first review with our investors. They were here.
Red Blue Capital. No?
Red Blue Capital, and
What's,
they asked
what's
for
your relationship like, Malone? They've invested and
So Red Blue Capital is primarily a mobility focused fund. Their LPs are from the mobility world, automotive world, and they have a fairly impressive portfolio of companies they've invested in, which are in the new mobility space. Could be electric, could be software for electric or something like that, right? So they have this experience of how mobility works. They've authored a book, the Mobility Development Framework. They understand how the future of the mobility landscape in the world will look like. So from that experience, we have a investor who understands the industry codely, and we had offers on table for better valuation, better funds. We didn't go ahead with them at that point of time because we believed that
they can add
as an
more value
investor,
strategically.
the value will be added, and they will understand what we are trying to do. Right? You can't put instead of and I've heard this question, right? Instead of 20 million, we'll give you $100 million. Can you sell 10,000 trucks in 6 months? As a manufacturing setup, there are constraints, right? You can't do that. It's not like putting a software on a server and then you get people to download it by, putting in ads and whatnot, right?
But एक चीज तो अच्छी चीज which has happened in the startup ecosystem is that the entrepreneurship mindset has started to come. India, as you said, we were talking that it is going through a very big transition in terms of mindset change, right? Service से हमने
Arts
product
at your
mindset
house
किया.
start talking about what is a startup.
Correct, है ना?
So that has been more
that has been
acceptable.
changed, है ना? कि मतलब वो बातें होनी चाहिए कि and now our country, our generation is also going through that risk appetite भी बढ़ गई है. But today,
But it's a responsibility of every entrepreneur to not hire just for showing scale.
करेक्ट सो मैं वही पूछना चाह रहा हूँ आपको कि आई वॉन्ट टू अंडरस्टैंड टुडे देर इज अ 22-year-old गर्ल और अ बॉय सीइंग दिस लिसनिंग टू यू इन द ईवी स्पेस ही और शी कैन बी पैशनेट इन एनी फील्ड राइट उनको आप आज एक मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में आप काम करो बिकॉज यू हैव अ लॉट ऑफ एग्जाम्पल्स इन दी सर्विस सेक्टर में तो कितने ऐप्स बनी है सारी बट यू एज अ मैन्युफैक्चरिंग बिकॉज आई एक्चुअली बिलीव दैट इफ इंडिया हैज़ टू रियली ग्रो एंड वील कम टू दी योर इनोवेशन पार्ट जो इंडिया वाला पार्ट है दैट लार्ज स्केल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हैज़ टू बी बिल्ड इन इंडिया तो उनको आप क्या 3 टिप्स बोलोगे कि आज कोई एक बच्चा सुन रहा है जो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में स्टार्ट करना है व्हाट आर दोज फंडामेंटल्स दैट ही और शी शुड टेक केयर ऑफ
First and foremost, I always say, and this is common for any business, you should understand your customer the best. Your business will start and end at the customer. You should know the exact wants and desires of your customer.
Obsession. Bezos talks about customer obsession.
Yeah, I just talk about know your customer. I don't have these fancy words, but you should know exactly what your customer wants. What are his needs or her needs? What are their desires? You should know that perfectly well before you start anything, any entrepreneurial journey. What problem will you solve for your customer? Is it even worth that he will take? And the most toughest thing for an entrepreneur is to get a customer to take out money from his wallet and place on your product. वो तब करेगा when you are genuinely and with the clutter in the world there are not one startups and we are lucky we started off 10 years before आज अगर मेरे को start करना होता I think a EV startup I would have failed today if I had to start from zero right because there is just so much happening everybody is doing something right
so know your customer is one
your customer you should know properly first and उसके बाद you have to develop a product that is differentiated enough for him to take that money out
okay product point of difference of that product
yeah it has to be differentiated it has to be reliable it has to be delivering on your brand promise मैं एडवर्टाइज करूंगा मैं ये बना रहा हूँ अगर उस एडवर्टाइजमेंट की रीच आपके कस्टमर तक नहीं है वो आपको प्रोडक्ट डिफरेंशिएट करने में हेल्प नहीं कर रहा,
Yeah.
इट्स अ वेस्ट ऑफ योर मनी.
सो बेसिक फंडामेंटल्स यू सेड है ना, मतलब आप बच्चों को बोल रहे हो कि भाई साहब कस्टमर समझ लो अच्छी तरीके से और प्रोडक्ट ऐसा डिलीवर करो जो कि पॉइंट ऑफ डिफरेंस हो, दैट्स इट. एंड थर्ड, फोकस इन दोनों पे करो.
Yeah, and to give you the examples from my
Brilliant,
life, right?
brilliant.
Between 2015 to 2018,
Yeah.
I have spent 50% of my time at Transport Nagars.
2015 to
15 से
17.
2018 तक.
Yeah.
50% of my time has been spent at Transport Nagars of different cities. I have sat with the booking agent के order कैसे लेता है भाई ट्रक का, and observed. I have sat with the drivers and delivered myself for at least 2 years of my life.
Are you finding good talent, engineers और technicians मिल रहे हैं आपको पंजाब में?
That's where my thing with the education system is. We are a didactic education system.
ये तो करनी है मेरे को बाद एजुकेशन में एक बार.
फर्स्ट वो आएगा लड़का जो रट्टा मारने में एक्सपर्ट है इन योर क्लास. बोर्ड में बेस्ट रिजल्ट उसी का आएगा. द वर्ल्ड हैज चेंज्ड नाउ, राइट? You need to think out of the box. You need to be open to a new point of view, new changes. Our teachers are not open to a new point of view.
तो आपको आज एजुकेशन मिनिस्टर बना दिया हमने एक दिन के लिए.
I'm not capable of being education
नहीं चलो, बट
minister.
आप करोगे क्या, मतलब लाइक दो, बिकॉज we've had this discussion in the past, but
I think,
what are the major
change that
big ticket items that you
major
will change
ticket items
in
that need
education?
to change are, the education system has to be such that it triggers the thinking process of an individual.
मतलब क्यूरोसिटी
Which
को
is
आप
the
बोल रहे
best business school in the world, so called Harvard. You've been there, right? Case studies ही देते हैं ना वहाँ पे. That is why it's the best. There is no right or wrong answer there.
हो. Yeah,
And in our life also, there is no right or wrong anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Something may work for somebody, something may not.
yeah. हमारी ट्यूनिंग बचपन से एजुकेशन सिस्टम यहाँ पढ़े हैं, इंजीनियरिंग की, स्कूलिंग की, ये हुई है कि ये ब्लैक है, ये वाइट है, ये सही है, गलत है, ठीक है. एंड सडनली आई एम देयर, केस स्टडी डिस्कस हो रही है, एंड एज यू राइटली सेड कि आपको पहले दिन केस स्टडी पहले आ जाती है एंड डिस्कशन स्टार्ट होती है स्टूडेंट्स में. एंड आई स्टिल रिमेंबर कि द प्रोफेसर केम इन एंड आई रिमेंबर इट वाज अ केस स्टडी ऑन डिज्नी पे, वॉल्ट डिज्नी पे थी. एंड पॉइंट स्टार्ट हो गए, तो किसी से ओपिनियन ले रहे हैं, मैंने भी बोला 2-3 चीज़ें, एंड आई वाज वेरी दैट आइडियलिस्टिक कि ये बिल्कुल सही होगा, ऐसी स्ट्रैटेजी डिज्नी को करनी चाहिए. इट वाज समथिंग रिलेटेड टू डिज्नी पिक्सार एक्विजिशन, ऐसे कुछ था. एंड आफ्टर लाइक 60 मिनट्स अगर कोई पॉइंट होता था तो द प्रोफेसर वुड राइट, और वो ब्लैक बोर्ड चौक में पढ़ाते हैं, राइट, वो लिख दिया लेफ्ट हैंड साइड, किसी ने कुछ बोला तो उन्हें राइट हैंड साइड लिख दिया, ऐसे करते चलता रहा. 60 मिनट्स, 65 मिनट्स, 70 मिनट्स हो गए, वो चलता रहा. एंड आई वाज लाइक कि लाइक हाँ अभी हमारा आंसर सही होगा. एंड आफ्टर 70 मिनट्स व्हेन द लेक्चर गॉट ओवर, आई स्टार्टेड, मेरा ना पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू चेंज हो गया. पहले आई वाज जस्ट वेटिंग कि अच्छा सही और गलत क्या होगा, एंड आफ्टर 1 आवर से कि यार ये भी सही है. एंड सडनली द क्लास बोला यार थैंक यू सो मच, इट वाज अ ग्रेट सेशन, एंड सारे ओपिनियन डिस्कस हो गए. एंड दैट डे स्ट्रक मी कि यार ये तो बहुत कुछ तो डिफरेंट है, राइट, कि जरूरी नहीं है कुछ सही गलत है, राइट. इट्स जस्ट थिंकिंग, क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग आप जितनी डीपली करो, इट जस्ट मेक्स यू मोर शार्पर एज अ पर्सन एंड गेट्स यू मोर इक्विप्ड अंडरस्टैंडिंग डिफरेंट पॉइंट ऑफ व्यूज.
And you're open to more points
You're
of view.
open to
right?
point of
So
view.
that's how disruption happens. That's how innovation takes place.
So आप कहते हो कि सारे स्कूल में केस स्टडीज पढ़ा देनी चाहिए, लाइक दैट.
Something like that. No, I don't know physics
life
कैसे
skills.
पढ़ाओगे case studies में, but there are methods people can devise, right?
सर अब हमने मैन्युफैक्चरिंग की बात की, टॉक्ड अबाउट ईवी. अब एक और हॉट टॉपिक की बात कर लेते हैं, विच इज एआई. सो इतना कुछ हो रहा है, हाउ आर यू सॉर्ट ऑफ इंटीग्रेटिंग इन योर डिज़ाइन, इन योर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग, एंड ये क्या चल रहा है सर, मतलब इतनी बातें चल रही है अबाउट एआई एंड मशीन लर्निंग.
Generally, what happens is any problems you solve, you are governed by your human emotional problems in solving that. AI could objectively figure out the right solution using computation, which is far more complex. Until now, the biggest problem was that we could not do concurrent processing in systems, right? With AI, it can concurrently look through different data sets to bring different points of view. So I believe that's what change AI is going to bring to the world. Or it is used in the core design of the vehicle, right? You give a design problem, It will give you some 250 options, and then you work with AI to shortlist 2 or 3 candidates, and then you use the product. So this is the current status of AI, right? It's not that आप उसको बोलो बॉस मेरे को ये ABCD करना है, प्रोडक्ट डिजाइन कर दे. वो डिजाइन तो कर देगा, वो चलेगा नहीं चलेगा अभी तो AI को भी नहीं पता, right?
वही सीख रहा है.
So that is still in the process. I think the amount of computing power that it takes, it may be counterproductive to ask him to do it. क्योंकि वो end of the day servers लगे हुए हैं, servers use electricity, they cause some carbon creation. Whereas you and me sitting in a room and thinking, हम खुद कार्बन तो नहीं प्रोड्यूस कर रहे, hopefully, right? So it only mission critical things where the human brain cannot do the computations and do that is where AI would help, right? So that's how AI is working. We are working on generative AI design, so we lay out a base design and then we have to go through iterations, and it's not that एक बार दिया तो बन के बाहर आ गया तो नहीं हो रहा है.
But do you think that the whole discussion on driverless vehicles is a big future? Are you a supporter or do you endorse that?
Again, it's driven by what your customer wants. End of the day, काम वही चलेगा जो customer को
So आप
चाहिए.
कहते हो कस्टमर को चाहिए तो बनाएंगे.
So that's one part, what the customer wants. Customers' demands are driven by socio-economic conditions always.
ठीक, correct.
Yeah, it's not, you may want to wear a denim trouser and a shirt. That's normal. We are not wearing kurta pajama sitting in Punjab, which was normal 50 years back. So our desires are driven by socio-economic training conditions that we are
Fair
in
enough.
as customers, right? So I'm now getting into psychology of the customer. So there are certain countries through our travels we have gone through in the Western world where the population growth is not there. The population is aging. You don't have enough resources to deliver products. Certain countries, being a delivery boy or a delivery driver is not so glamorous enough that people want to apply for it. And there are countries which have 2% unemployment rate, 1% unemployment rate. So they are finding it difficult to hire drivers for their deliveries. Or the cost of delivery is going to go so high, they have to increase the pay, otherwise, that the cost per delivery per parcel is going to be unmanageable for them to run the business. So these are initial offshoots that we are seeing already when we talk to our customers. At some point, it will become, boss, गाड़ी अपने आप चला के दो, हमको नहीं पता. It's impossible for us to manage our fleet. So that point will come at some point.
बट आप कह रहे हो इंडिया में तो पॉपुलेशन इतनी ज़्यादा, तो वो
India we don't see that issue.
जहाँ पे पॉपुलेशन डिक्लाइन है और जहाँ पे वो रोल ही नहीं होगा, तो वहाँ पे कस्टमर्स वुड वांट कि, क्योंकि बिकॉज ऑफ
आदत
डिमांड
तो पड़ गई है ना कि मेरे को घर पे बैठे मिल जाएगा. आई जस्ट स्वाइप एंड द
बिकॉज सप्लाई नहीं है, बिकॉज लोगों की वो सप्लाई नहीं होगी, तो ड्राइवरलेस गाड़ियाँ उस इकोसिस्टम के लिए बनेगी. बट मतलब इंडिया में बैठे जहाँ पे 150 करोड़ है,
I don't see the need.
तो इंडिया में यू डोंट फील,
At least in the next 5-7 years, I don't think so. Yeah, we can do it as a fancy engineering project. Somebody can do it, but उसका actual use case क्या निकल के आएगा, right? It could be used in certain controlled environments within India, but I think the labor cost arbitrage in India is so low right now. The hardware will be far more expensive that you put onto the vehicle to do it, right? And so that is one part of it. Second, the technology also has to mature enough to go driverless. अभी तो technology is still maturing for driverless vehicles, right? There are so many decisions for a driverless car to take. Accident हो गया या रेड लाइट जंप हुई, चलान किसको भरना पड़ेगा? Who's responsible for a major accident that has happened? Will the software company? Will the manufacturer? Who will be held responsible?
वी टॉक अबाउट टेस्ला, थोड़ा मतलब इंडिया लास्ट उस पर आते हैं, बट द इम्पैक्ट टेस्ला हैज़ मेड in terms of talking about or being a huge accelerator in the journey of decarbonization or energy mobility. What is your sort of take? You're in that space. You're manufacturing EVs.
I think BYD has done a far greater job in creating impact than Tesla. Tesla has done a better job in
marketing
the impact. You see the number of vehicles.
it. BYD.
BYD has put, and BYD is making those buses, large trucks. Cars तो बहुत कम है उनकी, right? And those are actual carbonizing vehicles which they are.
So you again go back to the same point of impact. कि
Yeah,
ये
why are
38 to
EV
40
companies working? Logic क्या था मतलब? Even for Tesla for that matter.
Decarbonize करना ना जी मतलब.
Decarbonize करना.
Correct.
What are the miles driven by average Tesla car? I mean, it's a great product, great company. You can't take that away. They are amazing at what they do. The products are really good. The engineering is world class. They put into it. But my yardstick is always impact, right?
We've really deep dive into EV and the impact, decarbonization. But you spoke about India, and in all the podcast, in all the discussions, we end the entire discussion with talking about India. आपने एक बहुत अच्छी चीज़ बोली कि यार मेक इन इंडिया की बात हो रही है, मेड इन इंडिया की बात हो रही है, बहुत अच्छी बात है. बट हाउ कैन वी ट्रूली मेक इन इंडिया बट फॉर द ग्लोब, राइट? वो टाइम चेंज करें कि जहाँ पे हम बोलें कि टेक्नोलॉजी लेके आनी, यहाँ बनाएं और दुनिया में बेचें. व्हाट्स योर टेक ऑन दैट पार्ट? एंड lastly, how do you see India 2047?
The product mindset has to come in, I think. That is and not as EVAGE, but you need millions of companies developing products which are globally acceptable. So technology is available, right? We need to apply ourselves and have a product mindset whenever we develop our products and try to create this. That's the core of it, right? In terms of the global opportunity, right? I think the whole world is changing, and this issue of the working population shrinking, which I attributed earlier also, is a big issue the world is facing right now. India perhaps is the youngest country with working hands that we have. And this is going to benefit us with a potent workforce capable of churning out great products. Everybody is looking for a China plus one. I think that narrative is going to go stale soon. It will not be China plus one. It would be the India strategy that's going to come globally. Right? So that sense of opportunities are going to crop up, and we have a lot of things which are going right for us. The economy is sustaining itself, and it's sustaining on internal consumption. We are not relying on external consumption so far. So luckily India has been detached largely with the global world that is moving, right? We have a population that is going to be ready to work. We have policies which are now focused towards innovation, towards entrepreneurship. Risk taking is accepted in the society now. I've been talking to a few friends. Someone's kid wants to be a psychologist. Somebody wants to, pursue different courses of education, which I think 20 years back, if we had told this to our parents, they would not have accepted that, right? So overall, it's
mindset change.
It's not only about India; it's about Indians. We as a community are wanting to express ourselves more. We want to make a mark as Indians. We are looking to, looking at the world. Like over the last 3 years after COVID, I think we have had these visa issues and all. Why? Because suddenly so many people from India want to go out of the world to travel, not to work now. Right.
काम तो है इधर.
So and then there are newer products, access to credit, all those things happening, which is just the aspirations are bigger than us now as a society.
How do you see EVAGE in the next 20 years, sir?
I hope and I pray we focus on our customer more than what we are doing today, and improve our customer focus from what we have today. That's the biggest challenge that we as an organization have, to not lose focus of our customer. Secondly, we would be a global player supporting countries and companies globally who need sustainability solutions for their mobility needs by providing vehicles that will solve those problems for them. So that's what we aim to do over the next 2 decades. I think business is pretty simple, right? Understand what your customer needs, deliver to that promise, and repeat it.
Haji, I'm so glad that 1997, 98 you thought of converting your Maruti 800 to a EV, and otherwise वो जो एक जो लड़के में थी वो एक EVAGE Motors ना बनता. And talking to you all through this podcast, एक चीज़ and having, we've had these multiple deep conversation. One thing which I personally admire as a younger brother is the deep focus that you have. So focused on your product, so focused on what you want to solve at the larger. I think it was an absolute delight talking to you, and once again a big thank you. And I hope that you and EVAGE really continue to create impact and decarbonize mobility. Thank you, Paji.
Thank you.